All right, everyone, welcome to another episode. We're excited today to have Jason Murray, who is the CEO and co-founder of Providence Group, which is an independent operating subsidiary and affiliate providing skilled nursing, healthcare, and rehabilitation services at more than 175 facilities across the United States. He's also are you CEO of PACS? I know there's a little bit of overlap between Providence and PACS, right?
Yeah. So that's a good question. In fact, I was going to stop you there for a moment. So Providence Group was the original company that we started 13 years ago. That name has now been retired, and so it's PACS Group Inc. is the parent company. Got it. Of what we do now.
Okay, so then is it more accurate to CEO and co-founder of PACS?
That's right.
Okay. PACS. Okay, awesome. Well, welcome in, Jason. Glad to have you in.
Well, thanks for the invite.
We could do this.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking a little bit before this. We've got some mutual connections, and this is one where I usually go through, EY Entrepreneur of the Year, BYU affiliate entrepreneurs, and your name came up over and over again, and I was actually at a BYU game a few weeks ago, and I think I saw your guys' logo out on the field. If that's right.
Yeah, that is right.
That's awesome.
That's
you guys,
right.
Yeah. So anyway, glad we could do this and get to know each other a little bit more and hear about your background. So the first thing I typically ask my guest, Jason, is to talk a little bit about your upbringing. So your childhood or teenage years, any influential people in your life or events that helped to mold you into who you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Syracuse, so not too far away from here. We had a family of 10, so my two parents and then 8 children. So a very big family. At the time, Syracuse was a farming community, right? This was back in the early 80s. And I had an awesome childhood, a lot of friends where we grew up. I was right down the street from R.C. Willey, so many people recognize that brand. So Bill Child was neighbors with us and good friends. And so just had a great childhood, very, very close with my siblings. We did all sorts of things together. I'm the second youngest of 8, and we have 7 boys and 1 girl. So my sister made sure that she defended herself, and she did a great job through the years, and now she's kind of the sweetest thing. So I like to think that we helped kind of raise her into that the sweet thing that she is today. But my older brothers were all big into athletics, baseball, football, basketball, pretty much anything with a ball. We enjoyed it. It was great to go out in the backyard and play. My parents were incredible. When you talk about influential people, I would have to point to my parents, and I would say specifically my father. And I can talk more about that if you'd like, but that he was the perfect example for me of leadership, of hard work, of devotion. And that's been a lesson that's stuck with me throughout all these years. And I find myself often asking myself, is my dad proud of what I've done? He since has passed away. It's been 11 years now, but is he proud of what I've done? And I'd like to think that the answer is yes. But a lot of what we've been able to accomplish, anything that I can call a success, I would have to tie back to my parents and my upbringing. So after, growing up, I went to Clearfield High School, graduated in 97, and had a great experience there. And then I had an athletic scholarship to go to Weber State University for track and field. And so I did that for a year, then went on an LDS mission to Argentina, and then came back home, and then continued my college career, and enjoyed that. That was a great experience for me. I thought that I had a pretty good idea what I wanted to do when I went into school. So my dad was a school teacher and a coach up at the high school. My mom was a school secretary at the junior high. So I went from Syracuse Elementary School to Syracuse Junior High, where my mom was the secretary, right? So I've got an extra set of eyes on me there. And then I go to high school and my dad's there, right? So I'm like, had to be on the straight and narrow throughout my junior high and high school years. But after my dad, he was he was the strength and conditioning coach, and so very active that way. And so I always kind of knew, and I had an affinity for athletics and enjoyed that sort of thing. And so I thought that I would love to do something related to, health and wellness, perhaps medicine as well. And so that's what I started studying. I was, I first wanted to be a pharmacist, and then I went and shadowed a pharmacist and realized that was not for me. It was a little too monotonous. And then I got into pre-medicine and was studying that at Weber with a good friend of mine who was on the track team at the time. And after doing some advanced anatomy courses, which I loved, we got into the study of some diseases and realized pretty quickly that was not for me. It was, I just didn't have the stomach for that, right? And my hat's off to all the physicians out there who can handle that sort of thing. So I was kind of floundering, right? Because I was probably 3 years into my education and didn't quite know what I wanted to do. And this is when my friend, who was also going through the pre-med program at the time, said, "Hey, have you ever thought of like healthcare administration?" Which I didn't know that was a thing at the time, right? It was an area that I'd never thought of before. So this guy, being a good friend, he connected me with the dean of the College of Health Administration, and this dean was kind enough to take me under his wing and tell me a little bit about what it is that they do. And I almost instantly fell in love with it. Like it helped marry the business side of medicine with kind of the delivery of care, which was always very interesting to me. And so I felt like my feet were on the right path, and I just kind of continued my studies and got to a point where I was getting ready to graduate, and I had to get an internship, a 200-hour internship. And my professor was like, you ought to go take a look at a nursing home. And because those are usually easy to get into and get those internships. If you're going to the hospital, it's a little more challenging. So I literally looked up in the yellow pages at the time, right? The closest nursing home to my home, which happened to be Heritage Park Care Center, which is in Roy. It's the old Weber County Hospital, like a pretty old building. I would call it probably a historic building. And went and cold called on the administrator there, Rich Dunkley, who was very kind, very gracious, patient, was willing to listen to me and listen to my request, and was kind enough to allow me to do this internship, which was unpaid, right? It was just a 200-hour internship where I had to, schedule it around athletics and my classes and that sort of thing. But that was my first exposure to a nursing home, right? Like I don't think I'd ever set foot in one before. And I remember thinking, man, this is heavy stuff that they do here. And Rich, being the great leader that he was, he encouraged me to get an administrator in my CNA license, or certification rather. And so there's a process to do that. You have to go through, do some clinicals and some direct patient care type stuff. And then you sit for a test, and then you get a certification, which allows you to provide direct patient care. So he thought it'd be a good experience for me to understand, what a nursing home is all about, and as part of my internship to become a CNA. So I did that. Went through the program, became certified, and then he said, I'm going to have you work the Alzheimer's unit here. And that was a very eye-opening experience for me, right? Like I was providing direct patient care, providing showers, changing briefs, providing meals. I mean, heavy stuff, right? But it was a great experience for me as I look back on that now. I mean, I would call that, and I try to point to that regularly as we talk about our upbringing and talk about what, impactful moments in our life. I would point to that one as one of the most impactful moments in my career. And there are several stories that we probably don't have the time to tell that were very impactful for me and helped me understand the importance of providing quality care to a patient and the impact that you have on their lives, the direct impact and the improvement that you have on their lives. And not just their lives, but their family members' lives, right? Like there were patients I'd take care of, and their spouses would come in and visit them, and they needed us because they couldn't take care of them at home, right? And so when they would come in and visit their loved one, to see the joy that they had, but then just the ability to still maintain that relationship without having them at home, that was very impactful for me. And it started to resonate with me that, this is an important work that nursing homes do. And so, long story short, I decided that I actually wanted to pursue that. The dean again of the college had recommended I look at nursing homes as a career as opposed to hospitals, which is what I wanted to do. And so I went ahead and I had a good friend who said, hey, he was doing the same thing I was doing at the time. and was hired to become an administrator in training for a company in Oklahoma. And he said, they're looking for another guy. So are you interested? And at the time I was needing to provide for my family. I was recently married and so, decided to jump in, and we moved our family, our little family. My wife was pregnant with our first child, to Oklahoma. And we were the first ones on either side of the family to move outside of a 5-mile radius of either parents, right? So it was a big deal. And so anyway, that was kind of my upbringing, how I got into nursing homes. And, but that pivotal time at Heritage Park Care Center working as a CNA was probably some of the most valuable experience that I ever had.
Yeah, I can imagine. My wife's grandfather is actually in the process of transitioning to a full-time nursing facility. He's living with my in-laws right now, and they've been out in Utah going to different facilities trying to figure out. So yeah, we're kind of going through that right now, the importance of that care and the time and attention that's required, and balancing, still being part of the family, but also being in a facility full-time. It's a very delicate thing. It's delicate. It's interesting. It's
emotional, right? Yeah. All that decision around that. I mean, the reality is nobody wants to be in a nursing home, right? Nobody wants to be in a nursing home. They want to be home, and age in place. And we get that. And we firmly try to support that as well when it's appropriate, but there will always be a need for skilled nursing facilities in the healthcare continuum. And the reason that is because the level of acuity at the hospital continues to get pushed downstream into lower cost settings. And a nursing home is the lowest cost institutional setting that we have in the healthcare continuum today. It's roughly a third of what it costs to take care of a patient in the LTAC or long-term acute care hospital, or in the acute care, it's a fraction of what it costs to take care of that patient in a hospital, right? So there will always be a place for skilled nursing, especially with the aging demographic and the baby boomers who are coming of age. There's a lot of tailwinds for what we are doing, but what's important for us is that we are really changing the narrative around this space.
Yeah, makes perfect sense, Jason. So and I saw that in your early career, a few groups that you were with, Covenant, Dove, Avalon, Day West. So was that the group in Oklahoma? Was that Covenant, or was that another one? Or how did the next few years, I guess, play out for you?
Yeah. So when I started that building that I went and cold called was part of Covenant Dove, which again, at the time I didn't know that. I didn't really know what Covenant Dove was, how big their company was. And they were I call it a medium-sized regional operator out of Tennessee. And they had just a handful of facilities out here in the West. Most of what they had was Tennessee, Mississippi, Florida. And then they had, I believe, 3 in Utah and 4 up in Idaho. And that was the only stuff they had out West. Everything else was back East. And so when I left, after I did my internship there and graduated from Weber, I moved to work at Peak Medical Corporation, which was the first, I guess, company that I worked as an administrator for. And they that was in Oklahoma and was there for 2 years. And then they sold to a company called Sun Healthcare out of California. And at that time, the company in Tennessee reached back out to me, Covenant Dove, and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to come back to Utah. We have a spot for you." So we did that. We came back and worked at their location in Provo, and then at their other locations here in Utah. And again, was a great experience. And then from there, transitioned to, and this is going way back, I don't have my resume in front of me, but I think it was Avalon, which was a large, they had, again, another kind of regional operator, but they're based here in Salt Lake City. And had a great experience with Avalon. They've since have sold off some of their assets, and they're not the size that they were back then. And then had an opportunity to work for a small family-owned company. That was Day West Healthcare. And they at the time had what I would call the premier facility in Salt Lake City. In fact, it was probably the premier facility in the state at the time, which was Highland Care Center, which is in Salt Lake up in the Highlands. And had a chance to go run that facility. So I saw it as a great opportunity to I guess further refine my abilities to run a high performing facility, and did that for I guess a couple of years. And it was then when a company called Plum Healthcare was moving out of California to Utah, It was their first expansion. They were a large regional operator in California, had about 30 buildings or so. And they were transitioning out west. Utah was their first growth out west. Further east, I guess, going from west to east to Utah. And I heard about them coming into the state, and they had targeted some locations close to where I was working. And a few of their leaders came in, some of their principals of their company came in to visit with me about possibly coming and working for them. And, very long story short, decided to and at the time, unfortunately, Mr. Day, who was the patriarch of the Day West company, had passed away, and his wife had done a great job keeping things together, but she had gotten to a point where she wanted to divest and do something different. So she was entertaining the sale of the company, and so I thought it was a good time for me to transition. So I went to work at Plum Healthcare, helping them open up the state of Utah. And that's where I met my business partner, Mark Hancock. He was an administrator in training at a facility down the road from Highland Care Center. And so he and I ran a building just down the street from where he was, and we were in the trenches together trying to figure out, the growth and expansion in Utah. And, from a California-based operator, California-based mentality of how to run facilities to a more of a Utah-based, local-based. So we had our challenges along the way, but it was a great experience. And it really, I think, solidified our friendship, Mark and I, being in the trenches together and trying to figure things out. It was a special time.
Yeah. And at this point, so what year approximately is this, and how old are you?
Oh boy. So, this would have been in, call it 2000, so we started the company 2013, 12, it's 2010-ish,
okay,
something like that.
Yeah.
So I was, 30, early 30s, 32. 30s.
And at that point you had like a decade of experience,
that's right,
going through,
that's right.
And I think a question for you, Jason, like how valuable was that in terms of taking that experience and being able to, parlay that into your own venture? I mean, would you say that was absolutely critical? Do you recommend people, taking a decade to learn and work in their field before doing something on their own, or how do you balance that?
Yeah. And you really can't fake experience. Right. And so, to answer the question, it was invaluable for me to be able to learn through mistakes and learn through successes, how, what worked and what didn't work. And when we started our company in, late 2012, early 2013, we had that depth of experience, not only in skilled nursing and post-acute healthcare, but also in other industries. And I actually had left skilled nursing to go work for Intermountain Healthcare right before we started our company. And so I had a couple of years there of acute care experience. And so that was important because it allowed me to get a better perspective on that continuum on the acute care side. But anyway, when we came together, we felt like we had a very unique approach to, through our experiences, on how we can start to kind of revolutionize the delivery of care in nursing homes. And what that looked like was what we felt was a unique clinical model, operational model, leadership model. And that really only came together through the experiences, right, that we had over the years. Like, had I not had that experience, I wouldn't really even know where to start.
Right. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. So you're at Intermountain Healthcare. You've got this partner that you've connected with at Plum. How did you guys start thinking about, formulating this, going on your own, taking that risk? Like, what was that like?
Yeah. It's Mark's better at telling this story than I am, but his brother-in-law, for years and years, asked him to come and work for him. And at the time, he owned 2 nursing homes in San Diego, California. And they were, at the time, kind of, they were brand new, like turnaround facilities, right? Facilities that were distressed. And they had done a very good job over the years. They'd had them for about 10 years or so, done a very good job turning them around and making them special facilities in the markets that they were in. And so he was like tirelessly calling Mark and asking him if he wanted to join the family business, right? And Mark kept stiff-arming him for years and years. And then finally, Ken, who is Mark's brother-in-law, called him up and said, listen, instead of working for me, come buy me out. Like, I want to do something different. And so it was then where Mark was like, well, that's interesting. That's interesting. I could possibly do something like that. And so that's when he called me. And because Mark's background is more finance and accounting. He's worked for several large banks and has that very strong financial background that has been valuable for us over the years. So my background's more operations. And so, us having spent that time together, he called me up and said, hey, we should take a look at this. And at the time I was at Intermountain, and I really felt like I'd worked hard to get to that point. Like, Intermountain is a great organization. And I was fortunate to be there, and I saw myself working there for a long time. So it was a very hard decision. And I remember to this day, I was out fishing in Idaho, and we were going through the financials. We were going through, what an operations model would look like, what a clinical model would look like, how we would make it special, how it would be different, how we would do things different from our experiences in the past. And it was then when it just kind of clicked, and we both are like, you know what, we can do this. This makes sense. We can do it. And so so that's when we bought into, at the time it was called Sterling Healthcare, 2 facilities. And we took over the operational control of the company. And Kenny and his business partner were essentially as silent partners. And then a few years later, we ended up buying them out, and we became the sole members of the company. So the cap table today is myself and Mark at 50% each.
That's great.
Yeah. So it was really that experience with Mark's brother-in-law that was the kind of the catapult to get us to start the company.
So you go and buy into these 2 facilities. I mean, how did you guys manage the acquisition of that? Was it like, hey, we're going to go get some friends and family together. We're going to just pull our checkbooks out. Yeah. Like, I mean, because I always think about the first deal, like it's so important, right? And then it kind of, you can go from there. But yeah, how did that come about?
So in the first deal really is kind of the most challenging one to get done, right? Yep. And so that, it was really a combination of things. And it's very helpful that Kenny was family with Mark. I think that helped us on terms, and they were willing to carry some paper. Sure. Which was great for us, right? Because we didn't have a lot of capital, but we ended up leveraging everything that we have, right? And those were scary times. Like, it was really kind of the gut check moment of, listen, am I willing to throw in everything, knowing that if things don't go well, I've lost everything. And again, those early conversations, the more we talked about that, the more we felt confident in ourselves and our ability, and so that's how we got it done. So we brought everything that we could from our end, leveraging everything we have to bring as much capital as we could. And then they were willing to take a note. And then, and then we went to work.
Yeah. Love it. That's great. So how did it evolve from, Sterling to then becoming, Providence or PACS? Mm-hmm. What was the evolution?
So we rebranded it almost immediately.
Okay.
Not almost, we did immediately rebrand it to Providence Group. And the bigger that we got, we started to get the attention of some of the other Providence healthcare businesses out there, and there's several, especially on the acute side. Sure. That we got their attention to where they were sending us cease and desist and telling us to stop using the name. And so that's been many years ago, and so we've over the years have tried to start a new rebranding, which is where PACS Group comes in and PACS. So that was the evolution from Sterling to Providence Group. But yeah, in the early days, I mean, at the time, the size that we were about 20 million in revenue and had roughly 400 employees or so between 2 facilities. And and it's been crazy as we've grown. We're now we've done over 3 billion in revenue this year, and we'll have call it 360 million in EBITDA. And we have 35,000 plus employees, and we take care of 22,000 patients a day. 22,000 plus a day. So it's been crazy to see the amount of growth that we've had in 10 years. I wish I could say that I envisioned us growing to the size that we are today, but I never did. It's really just been a function of believing and being passionate about something that we love, we absolutely love, and aligning that with the right leadership. And as we do that, things have just kind of taken on a life of its own.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and going from 2 facilities, 20 million in revenue. I mean, again, going from where are you guys at today? I guess how many facilities?
So we're at, I believe that the number is like 208, 209, something
So
like
over
that.
200.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe what were the first few years like after you acquired the 2 and you're running these facilities and then deciding, okay, we're going to expand, and how did you execute on 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. And we, the reason that we really liked those 2 facilities in San Diego is that they were performing. As I mentioned, those 2 guys had done a good job doing the heavy lifting. We still saw some opportunity for improvement in the 2 locations to improve EBITDA and some efficiencies there. And so we saw it really as an opportunity to take that platform and leverage that to grow. And so to take that cash flow and reinvest it into new opportunities. And so we, at the time, we were beating every bush we could to find opportunity to grow, because that was our idea, is that we felt like we had this unique model that we wanted to expand with. And so at the time, Mark was living in Kentucky and I was living here in Utah. We were switching off every week, going down to San Diego to operate down there and to be with our facilities and our staff. And at the time as well, we were also looking for new acquisitions, new opportunities. And so we were able to get to the front of the line. And to this day, I still don't know exactly how we did, but we got our beat on 5 facilities in Kentucky. And it was a family that had owned them for years. He built them years ago, and he was now, I want to say he was like in his mid 80s or something, and had no succession plan. And so we were able to talk with him and get to the front of the line on buying his facilities, but we didn't have the capital to do that, right? To take down the propco, the property company, and the operating company, requires, it's pretty capital intensive, right? And so what we ended up doing there is partnering with a healthcare REIT, and we brought in the healthcare REIT to buy the real estate, and then we essentially bought the operations. And the way that works is that most of the value in a deal like that, because these were distressed facilities, right? They were not performing well clinically, financially. The way that works is a lot of the value is assigned to the real estate. The operations really doesn't have much value. And so you can literally walk into that transaction without any money to buy the operations, because the buildings were hemorrhaging. Like, we were naive at the time. These buildings, they were losing $3 million a year between the 5. And so, again, mind you, we don't have a lot of capital, right? And we were very ambitious, thinking that we could turn those around quickly by using the platform of the 2 facilities in San Diego. And so fortunately, things worked out well, and we were able to turn them around. But that really was the way we got that deal done. And then just a couple of months later, we had a very similar deal in Central California, where we had a family-owned company, had 3 facilities that, again, there was no succession plan, and we had to bring in, again, another REIT to help us close on that deal. And then we bought the operations for essentially zero, and started to turn those around as well. So those were the first 2 deals that we did, and that was within the first year, I would say.
Yeah.
So it was great because we got good financing, good terms with the healthcare REIT. We did it for essentially zero on the operations. And then as the operation started to generate cash flow, that was, the return on investment was very quick, because we just hadn't, you had your working capital that you had to work with, right? But beyond that, as it generated cash, those ROIs are pretty quick.
Yeah.
So that's really been the business model from the beginning, and it's worked out well.
I was going to ask, did you continue that same model going forward, where you have someone help acquire the real estate, you guys are running the operations?
Yeah. So early on, that's what we had to do out of necessity, right? Because we didn't have the capital, but we knew that we wanted to own real estate. That was important to us. It was important to strengthen our balance sheet that way. And, there's some tax advantages and that sort of thing as well. And then being able to control our destiny with the PropCo, OpCo married together, that was important to us. So that was a strategy that we had early on. We always knew we would get there as we just generated more cash. And so we've done that. We did that, just a few years after starting the company. We've been able to buy our own real estate. And so out of the 200 and whatever it is, 8 or 9 that we own and operate today, we have interests in, call it, 25% of those. And we, the goal is to be more along the lines of 50%.
Yeah. Makes sense. That's great. And from the difference, so with our company, we invest in multifamily, and you hear senior living, you guys, skilled nursing facilities. There's different tiers, it seems, to I guess senior housing. How do you guys fit into that space in the industry?
Yeah, so you're right. There's different, when we talk about post-acute healthcare, there's a lot of different providers out there, right? Like you have, like you said, your assisted living facilities, you have independent living facilities, and as you get down even lower in the spectrum, or I say lesser care in the spectrum would be like home health as well, where you're taking care of the patients at home. And then the spectrum moves up to like the inpatient rehab facilities, the long-term acute care hospitals. So we kind of see ourselves right in the middle of the spectrum. And so in a like an assisted living facility, independent living facility, there's only a certain level of care that they can provide. And that's appropriate, right? And they should be taking care of those patients when it's appropriate. And our goal is to transition those patients to the lowest cost setting that we possibly can, and get them into a lower level of care whenever that's feasible for us to do. That's the best outcome for the patient. So that's always our goal, and our interests are always aligned with our patients that way. And so we see it, the independent livings, the assisted livings as partners, the home health agencies as partners, because they allow us to have that flow of patients into a lower level of care. So it's important when we talk about, our growth as a company and why we are where we are geographically and in the communities that we're in, is that we're trying to really create an ecosystem. And there's other verticals that we, invest in, like we own assisted living facilities. We have some independent living facilities as well. There'll probably be an area where we continue to develop that. And we've owned home health and hospice before. So other verticals within the healthcare continuum, we're looking at and exploring always, and seeing how we can create the ecosystem, the best ecosystem within the markets that we're in to take care of that patient the best possible way and have the best possible outcome. Because that's the way that we feel that's the future of healthcare is being able to take care of a patient for less money and have a better outcome than what we have today. And we feel like we're very good at what we do. In fact, we feel like we're the best at what we do. And so we want to have as much touch on that patient post-acute as possible. And so with that mentality, it makes sense for us to be involved in those other verticals when it makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. And reading on the background, it sounds like PACS was initially kind of the back end software, accounting, some of that roll up into the Providence. And now you guys are all kind of one. But how was that experience in kind of creating, I guess, the technology, the software, the background, the accounting, all of that goes into kind of creating the success that goes into a facility?
Yeah, and that's a very good point that you make. And maybe just to quickly clarify or touch on that, Provident or PACS Group Inc. is that national platform that invests in post-acute healthcare facilities, in post-acute healthcare professionals, and in other business verticals within that space. That's PACS Group Inc. And then there's PACS Services, as you just mentioned. PACS Services is a subsidiary of PACS Group Inc. And it is the back office support for these different businesses. So these businesses contract with PACS Services, and then PACS Services provides all of the back office services that independently affiliated facility needs in order to be laser focused on care. Because our model is unique in that we have our administrators, we refer to them as the local CEOs because each location has an administrator. And that administrator is the local CEO of what he or she does. And we try to empower them to make sure that they stay laser focused on care, stay laser focused on the outcomes of their patients, stay laser focused on their employees as well and the culture within their facilities. So PACS Services exists to take that burden of administration off of their plate to keep them focused on what's most important. And so your question about technology, PACS Services has been a very interesting story in itself for us. It's been an evolution over the last 10 years where we've built something that we feel is very special and unique, and absolutely unique to our industry, where we've invested tens of millions, probably upwards to $70-80 million or so in the development of this back office support service with technology, with personnel, with infrastructure that really has created a machine to, as we grow, it's easy to assimilate these facilities because of this back office engine that we've created. And so the back office, provides support like, legal support, AR support, risk management, HR, that sort of thing. So again, all of these different IT, all of these different services that can be a burden for the administrator, we try to take that off their plate.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think the ability to vertically integrate like that and create kind of your own platform that you can utilize. Are you guys, is PACS Services also servicing, third-party groups that are not affiliated with Providence? Or?
So that's the vision of PACS Services.
Yeah.
And we haven't really commercialized it yet, but when we talk about verticals, that's a business vertical that we've been very interested to commercialize and take outside of just our family of companies.
Yeah.
So the quick answer is yes, there is one contract
Nice.
that's a third party, but we hope that expands.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm curious on in terms of operating, these as businesses, because you mentioned there's a real estate side and then there's the operational side. It's almost like hospitality, hotel. I mean, it's a complete different P&L that you're working with rather than just collecting rents and expenses. You have your overhead, you have your skilled nurses and all of that. What is that like, trying to get, appropriate margins, make it a profitable operating business, and then also balancing that with the value of the real estate?
So our space has, it's seen its share of challenges over the years. And in fact, I would say, it's had a black eye for quite some time because of providers that are out there that have not done it well. And what I mean by that is that, to this point you're making on leverage. And, we've seen some of the large national chains go belly up because they get in a situation where they're not performing well operationally and their leases are such a large burden that they can't make it work. And so, that's when, when there's like private equity money that comes into our space, or there's, other investors that come into our space, they're looking to make a quick buck in what we do. And we believe strongly that healthcare is local and those decisions need to be made locally. And until you do that, like these other investments will never work. And that's been our attitude from the beginning, is we've been approached time and time again by private equity. And we've always stiff-armed them just because of the lessons that we've learned from other providers out there who get over-leveraged. And so we've really worked hard to make sure that we stay disciplined with our growth. And so in an industry, there's 15,000 nursing homes across the country roughly. And that number has been stagnant, if not actually going down a little bit over the last several years. And so you're not seeing a lot of new build stuff out there, de novo stuff. You really don't see that. And we own 200 and whatever the number is, 8 or 9. And, we're one of the largest providers in the country. I think we're number 2 or number 3. And the largest provider has, call it 250. So you can see how fractured the industry is, right?
Absolutely.
So there's ample opportunity to grow. And if you're not careful and you just want to grow for growth's sake, or you have a private equity behind you that's saying, hey, go grow and buy up everything you can buy, you can do that. But you're not going to find the best deals, and you're going to be over levered, and then that's going to impact your quality of care. So we see providers out there today that are still doing that model. And it blows my mind that they're still committed to that, even after seeing some of these larger providers fail. So we've tried to be very, very disciplined with how we grow. So, to answer your question, it does need to be, the economics need to make sense when we're evaluating a deal, to where the lease makes sense, right? Like we can't get into an opportunity where the lease is overvalued. Or if we're buying the real estate needs to make sense. Like we have a box that we evaluate things, and if it's outside of that box, we don't do the deal. It's plain and simple. And so, time and time again, we have, sellers that will come to us, and, we evaluate hundreds and hundreds of deals, every year. And it's been interesting to see, we'll talk about, well, this is our box, this is where it needs to land. And the sellers are like, well, that doesn't work for me. And then they come back 6 months later because they're hemorrhaging on the operations side. They can't make rent, right? And so, they change their tune on what their expectations are. And so then that becomes more appealing to us, right? So again, we just try to be very disciplined. And as we've done that, I think the recipe's worked out well because it's allowed us to have the margin necessary. Even when we're doing a lease, it allows us to have the margin necessary that we need to accomplish our mission as a company.
Yeah.
Like we say, without any margin, there is no mission.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So right now, when you go to look at a new facility, have you guys gotten to a point where you're able to fund that with balance sheet cash on hand and say, hey, here's this lease we're going to buy into, or here's this, hard asset that we're going to buy into? Or are you still out looking, with REITs, working with REITs or doing anything like that to get deals across the finish line? So
that's been, I guess, as we've grown, that's been one of the benefits, right? Is that we've scaled significantly, and we've also grown our lending partners significantly as well. And so we have lines of credit that are sizable at this point as a company, and so a lot of the stuff that we do today, we just fund off of our balance sheet.
Yeah.
Whether that's PropCo stuff, real estate stuff, or just OpCo stuff, but that does not prevent the REITs, because we are kind of I would call us a preferred provider for a lot of the REITs out there because we have a strong balance sheet, we have strong credit. But above that, and more importantly, is that we provide great care, and our model works. And so that's appealing to potential landlords. So we have very, very good relationships with our landlords, our REIT partners, and so we see a lot of deal flow that way. And what's important for us and what we've been able to do, especially here recently over the last, call it 3 years or so, 4 years, is that we've been able to JV with some of our landlords on the PropCo. So we actually have an ownership interest in that PropCo as opposed to just being a third part, having a triple net lease in place.
Yeah, makes sense. I assume there are groups out there. You mentioned some of these private equity firms that approach you. If I was going to find one of your facilities in Kentucky or whatever, and I said, hey, I want to buy this from you, from PACS, how does a transaction like that, when you guys exit a facility, how does that look?
So we actually we've sold one facility in the history of our company.
that's a good business model.
Yeah. So we really are buyers, not sellers, and there's a lot of reasons why that is. But the one that we did sell was a one-off facility in the state of Indiana, and it came as a bolt-on to a group of facilities that were in a different state, and it just didn't really make sense for us. We actually operated for quite some time, and then we received a very good deal and ended up just moving on from that facility. So and part of that is, the discipline with the acquisitions. We try to be, very, very careful with what we do. And so I like to think that every deal we do is a good deal. And so, when we think that way and the results show that, then we really don't have an interest in selling them.
Yeah, makes sense. So you guys, over 200 facilities, $3 billion in revenue, is that what you said?
Yeah. Over $3 billion in revenue. Yeah.
Over 300 million in EBITDA. So what's next? That's insane growth. That's it's only been about a decade, right? Since you guys started. Congrats. What's next for you guys?
Yeah, so it's a good question that Mark and I have spent a lot of time talking about. Again, as I mentioned, he and I are the only ones on the cap table. We haven't brought in any institutional capital at all, and again, there's a variety of reasons why we've never done that. So it feels good to be able to control our own destiny, and I need to make sure that I point out that the success that we've had up to this point isn't a function of just myself and Mark, right? We've been able to surround ourselves with incredible leaders, incredible people. And when people ask what's different between your company and the others out there, I say leadership. We've been very, very fortunate to have some of the best and brightest leaders, not only in our sector, I'd put it against any sector at all. And so, you mentioned like our logo on the BYU football field. That's an important relationship for us. We've pulled a lot of great leaders out of BYU. We've pulled some great leaders out of Weber State. We've pulled some leaders out of the University of Utah. And so those colleges are important to us. That relationship is important. We have similar relationships throughout the country. And so that really is, I think, what makes us, unique. And so when we talk about the future and we talk about, what's kind of the next steps for us, we feel strongly that we're building a legacy company. And, we are a mission-driven company. We feel like we are impacting people's lives in a way that no other industry can. It is a very intimate setting that we that we work in every single day. And, not even the hospital can say that. And I've been there and I've worked there and I know what it's like. And it serves, a very important purpose in our healthcare continuum. But post-acute care, skilled nursing, it is a very unique setting to take care of an individual. And so we feel like we're changing people's lives. We're changing our employees' lives. We're changing our patients' lives. We're changing the families of our patients, their lives as well. So and that's very rewarding, right? And there just happens to be a good business thesis behind that as well, but it's incredibly personally rewarding. And that's why we do what we do. And so we want to continue to do that. And so this legacy company that we've built, we want to continue to improve upon it. We want to try to touch as many lives as we can in this sector. And so I think what that looks like for us is we'll continue to grow responsibly, but we'll continue to grow and look for those opportunities where we can add value and improve people's lives along the way.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I want to touch on money briefly. And, I think a lot of people listen to the show or entrepreneurs, I think that's, at least early on, it's like, I want financial freedom. I want to create a certain lifestyle or way of living. I guess, how have you thought about money, Jason? I mean, you've had tremendous success now. I mean, now that you've kind of, quote, arrived and you've had the success, I mean, has it changed your perspective? Is it even really a big factor for you in your life right now?
So I don't know if I'd say it's a big factor in my life today. I had a mentor of mine years ago explain money to me, and I think it was in a very, very succinct way that made sense to me. And basically the gist of it was money is a magnifier. And so, if you are a good person, it'll magnify the good that you do, right? If you're a bad person, it'll magnify the bad that you do. And for me, that resonated when he told me that. I don't think I fully appreciated it until, you have money. And so, for me, that's money plays a role in providing for my family and providing, I guess, security for them, because I feel like that's my main responsibility as a father, is to do that. But beyond that, it serves a purpose to help other people. And the best way I feel like I can spend my money is to give it away, honestly. And so, as we, look to do that as a family, there's a lot of opportunity for us to impact people's lives positively through money. And so, we look forward to that chapter in our lives. We've already started that chapter, but we look forward to that being kind of a very important evolution of our family office that we've set up and our foundation that we've set up to where we can, continue to bless people's lives that way.
Yeah, that's great, Jason. That's great. And speaking of money and speaking of I guess, investing, how you mentioned your family office. I mean, how are you thinking about investing right now from a personal standpoint, diversification from away from PACS or other places?
Yeah, and diversification, that's a good word. And I think that's the right way of thinking about it is we've thought about this as a family, as I've talked about it with Mark, my partner as well. There's some good rationale of diversifying what we do, because a lot of our personal net worth is in our company. And so we've, over the last, couple of years, we've worked to start diversifying beyond that. So, Mark and I have created our own family offices, where we're actually together as a family office, the two families. And we've started investing. In fact, before we started our family offices, we were doing investing as well, outside of our company. And so we'll continue to do that. We invest in all sorts of different things. What's important to us is that we have a good management team that can, kind of take the ball and run with it. And we're building that. And we have some great people on our team today who help us with that, analyze deals, source deals, and look to create value that way. So, yeah, we look forward to continuing to see that evolve.
Yeah, love it. Last couple of questions, Jason, we'll wrap up. Just in terms of general advice you'd have for a business owner, entrepreneur, somebody trying to get something off the ground. I know it's a high level question, but is there anything that throughout your career that you would recommend as advice to newer entrepreneurs?
I would say probably two things. Find something that you're passionate about, something that you love, and then bet on yourself. And that's very simplistic, I think, but the more you think about it, there'll come a time, like if you can really find something that you're passionate about and you can, if you are pursuing it with a lot of energy, I think with time, you'll find an opportunity to do something on your own. And that time will come when you have to make that gut check of saying, do I believe in myself? Can I really make this work? Can I make that jump? And I strongly believe that if you know yourself, you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, if you need to surround yourself with some individuals because, you may be weak in some areas, then do that. But bet on yourself. But it's important that you have a passion for what you're doing. And because if there's no passion, then there's really no drive. And your motivation is not pure, right? If it's just for money, then it's not pure. You need to find something that's beyond that to drive you. And so, I guess that's the best advice I've been giving individuals when they ask me a similar question is that, find something that you love and that you're passionate about and then pursue it with a lot of energy.
Yeah, it's great. And then last question, Jason, just thinking about life in general, our purpose, success, how you define a life well lived. How do you as an individual define success?
So I would say that it's for me personally, and again, I know this is a question that probably you get 1,000 different answers on, but yeah. For me personally, it's the type of lives that you're able to impact beyond your own. And, I guess that's the way I view myself is I'm here to help other people. I'm here to help my family first and foremost. And then beyond that, I'm here to help other people. And so I guess the way that I would define success would be my ability to impact people's lives in a positive way that improves their life. And if I can do that, then those are the types of things that I think my dad would be proud of, that I can sit back and say, yeah, this is what he taught me. This is what his expectation of me was and is. And I can feel good about that. I mean, it doesn't have to be in the form of money, it can be in the form of time. It can be in the form of being kind to someone, whatever that looks like, but being able to impact their life in a positive way. At the end of the day, if I can do that more, and listen, I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, right? Like this is something that I'm working towards and trying to be better at. But as I can be better at that, that brings me a great deal of satisfaction. And to me, that satisfaction equals success.
That's great. Well, no better way to end, Jason. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story. It's incredible to see the success that you guys have had and excited to continue to see your journey.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, of course.